I believe the song Layla by Eric Clapton with his band Derek and the Dominos follows the same general form as the Riddle of the Sphinx. And I can defend that position like this. Both Layla, the song, and the Riddle of the Sphinx both concern themselves with the stages of a man's life, a human's life, really. Now, the Sphinx was a creature from Greek mythology with the body of a lion, the face of a woman, and the wings of an eagle. The Egyptian variant doesn't have the wings, but since the riddle comes from the story of Oedipus, we're going to go with the Greek version of the Sphinx. The Sphinx of mythology was very dangerous. In fact, it gets its name from the ancient Greek word sphinct to squeeze, kind of like sphincter, which is very hilarious until you're getting squeezed to death by a giant monster. I shall be as a great sphincter and squeeze my enemies. What are you laughing at? I'll put you in my sphincter. The Sphinx actually has a big role in the story of Oedipus. I'm sure you're familiar with the story of Oedipus. It's where we get the Oedipal complex. And the Sphinx actually has a very big part in that story and how Oedipus came to find himself in the position he finds himself in at the tragic end of that story. It goes like this. The Sphinx was blocking the road in a very kind of petty and annoying way. It wouldn't let anyone pass without solving its riddle. And if you guessed incorrectly at the riddle, it would eat you. It would squeeze you and eat you. So the king came up with a very old school solution to this problem, and that was he would promise his sister in marriage to whoever could successfully solve the riddle and get rid of the Sphinx. Like, as a reward, if you rid us of the Sphinx, I'm giving you my sister. You get to own her now. So Oedipus comes upon the Sphinx and he takes up the challenge. And the riddle of the Sphinx is, what creature walks on four legs in the morn, two legs at noon, and three in the eventide? What creature indeed? So Oedipus says, man. Man, a person. Because you crawl around as a baby on all four, and then you live your life walking on two legs. And then, back then, you got a cane as an old person. So three limbs. They didn't have like wheelchairs and rascal scooters yet. So the Sphinx is stunned that someone got her incredibly difficult riddle, throws herself off the cliff into the sea. The king says, Oedipus, now it's time for your reward. This is such a great reward. You're going to love this reward. This is going to mean such great things for you. It's not going to creep everybody out for the next 5 millennia. My sister Jocasta. Oedipus marries her. Turns out it's his mom. So he marries and has sex with his own mother. And he gouges his eyes out, which I've seen done on stage in a couple of different ways. Usually it's just like wrap a bloody bandage. But my favorite one was the Oedipus came out in a white blindfold that they fed like red liquid through tubes. So kind of did the Billie Eilish thing, drooping down as his, I am so, this my mother, I'm so depressed. What has the gods done? I'm blah, blah, blah. And he's like dripping with blood by the end of it. It was totally gross and totally awesome. What does this have to do with Eric Clapton, though? Now, Layla was written in 1970 by Eric Clapton and Jim Gordon for their band Derek and the Dominos. There's a little bit of controversy saying Jim's girlfriend, Rita Coolidge, actually wrote the dope piano outro part, but there's a lot of controversy. I say we give it to her. Why not? The song's fucking long enough. There's room enough to give three people credit. See, the subject of Layla was 60s model and actress Pattie Boyd, who, although Eric was deeply in love with her, was at the time married to George Harrison. of the Beatles. It's the extra added thing of, and this is also one of my best friends, is Eric and George were always very close. And now, I'm in love with my best friend's wife. I don't know what Eric Clapton sounds like. It's just a normal British guy. We're not going to steal his bird. So what we're presented in Layla is two stages of a human life. A young man's uncontrollable passion and an older man's reflection. You've got that opening part, really raw and exciting. With that guitar rip and those emotional, impassioned vocals, it evokes all the turbulence and the passions of when you're young and you have an unrequited love and you just don't know what to do with these feelings. And you just feel like, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. You got me on my knees. I'm begging, darling, please. The song devolves into this mess of competing and cooperating guitar solos like the tortured thoughts of a lovesick youth. You can feel some heat off that record 50 years later. Then comes the second part of the song, when you're a little older and you've got a little perspective. And you're like, do you remember that girl, Layla? Do you remember how broken up I was and filled with angst and just, oh, what it was like to feel such things back then? And I don't feel that way anymore. Even though it was a painful time in your life, you're also nostalgic for it. And it's celebratory. It's valedictory. When they say things are valedictory, the outro, the outro of Layla seems valedictory to me. Like Brenda and Eddie waving goodbye. There's just something about the tones, and the piano part is just like a commencement. It's wistful, like a beauty queen in the back of a vintage Cadillac convertible, waving to the crowd as she drives away. I don't have a dozen roses for a bouquet, so I'm going to use this. I'm off into the big, bright, beautiful tomorrow of adulthood. And that's why Scorsese put it to such good use at the end of Goodfellas. I mean, one of the best uses of songs in film history. Because it's like the end of an era. Sadness, bittersweet, all these images of death, culminating in Joe Pesci's character, Jimmy, getting an entirely different sort of graduation. Eric Clapton and Pattie Boyd did end up getting together and were married. And not that it should matter, but George did give his blessing and he was at the wedding. So happy endings all around for a while. Pattie Boyd also inspired Eric's Wonderful Tonight, Everybody's Wedding Song from 1978 to 1987. If the sun refused to shine, I would still be loving. That's something else. So we have the intense passions of youth giving way to the more reflective nostalgia of maturity. As a man is in the morning, and as a man is in the evening. Layla, Sphinx. Layla, Sphinx. Layla, Layla und Sphinx. Boyd and Clapton were divorced in 1989.